This is section 3.02 of the Unit 3 Notes Budgeting Basics. Today I am, as in you are the student, discovering different types of expenses and income that affects a budget so that I can determine if a budget is balanced and calculate the cost of raising a child. I will know I have it when I can solve problems involving budgets and predicting future costs. Specific techniques we're looking at for today's lesson is 2A, use rates and linear functions to solve problems involving personal finance and budgeting, including compensations and deductions. Before we get into today's lesson, I do have a video that I want us to watch called Good versus Bad Spending. So I'm going to play this in this recording as well. However, if you're in ClassKick, you should have access to this link if you want to watch it on your own time. So after we watch this video, I would like for you to share one thing you learned from the video in the box below. There's no right or wrong answer. Just more so sharing your thoughts with what you learned in this video. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Junk mail, coupons, bill. My tax refund.
$300? Party time. If by party you mean do not spend that money, then party time indeed.
Ah, I've always wanted some of these.
Jen, you're an adult. What are your priorities? Priority number 1, don't listen to her. This is like free money. Have fun with it. Oh, and is going broke over an emergency expense fun for you? Write down your financial goals on pretty paper, tape them to your mirror, and whisper compliments to them every morning. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You need to remind yourself of what's important. Not everyone fits in a neat little budgeting box. What are you doing?
Making a note. I'm going to prioritize my goals.
Gross.
But not necessarily the way you want me to. Everyone is different. My priorities are unique to me. It'll be easier for me to make decisions if I'm aware of my goals. I'll set up a reminder to pop up on payday.
According to this bank statement, your spending does not align with those goals. Here we go. Did you know that if you stopped buying lattes for 1 month, you would be an absolutely miserable person?
I do like fancy coffees.
Fluffy Wings over there is trying to deprive you of all the things that make you happy. Achieving your goals will make you happy.
Barf.
Carry a journal around with you and diligently jot down every financial transaction you make in a day. Who does that? You'll give it 2 weeks, get bored, and give up.
What if I really put my mind to it this time?
Oh, right. You mean like that time you ran a marathon?
Well, I never actually ran that marathon.
Exactly.
Every transaction, no matter how big or how small, is either contributing to a goal or taking away from it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
There's no way I'm carrying a journal around with me.
Well, duh.
But tracking my expenses with a budgeting app sounds easy enough.
Okay, but the real question is, what are you gonna do with your bonus $300? It's not a bonus. It's income that should be budgeted. Come on, treat yourself. If your goal is to save, then rewarding yourself by spending money isn't gonna help. Spend it, spend it, save it, save it.
Guys! Rewards are motivation for good behavior. They'll help me stick to my goals.
In your face.
And they don't have to be big or even money-based.
In your face.
For example, if I check my budgeting app every day this month, I'm totally giving myself permission to spend an entire day playing video games guilt-free as a reward.
Can't wait.
Prioritize, track, reward. This is going to go toward my emergency fund and my new laptop. Except for $5 that's going toward a fancy coffee. Look, I know that spending money isn't good, but it also isn't bad. I'm the one who needs to be responsible, and I can do that by prioritizing my goals, tracking my spending, and rewarding myself for creating smart financial habits. I can't let my ideas of what's good or what's bad make my spending decisions for me.
You can't?
Cool. So, does the fact that I can see you guys mean I'm going crazy?
Yes. No. Just kidding.
Uh-oh.
So again, after watching that video, go ahead and share one thing you learned in the box below if you're, again, following along in ClassKick. A budget is a plan to manage money. A budget allows you to determine how to spend your money over a given time period. Anything you spend money on is an expense. Anything involving money is an expense. So that includes car loans, that includes the video game you may have bought like a couple weeks ago, gas, daycare, pets, anything that involves money is an expense. To budget for an annual expense on a monthly basis, you need to divide an annual expense by 12. Sometimes you have annual expenses, like maybe you have an annual membership, or you just have something that you have to pay one time per year that you would then have to budget for that particular payment. So one of the problems that we're going to look at is budgeting for an annual expense. And again, we need to take the annual expense into a monthly to find the monthly basis of. Sorry, let me back up. To find out how much you have to pay per month for that annual expense, you need to take the annual expense and divide that by 12. So let's look at an example. Example 1. I'm going to cover this up and then reveal it as we go. Samantha's annual tuition for classes is $3,534. How much should she budget for each month for tuition? So the key word here is annual tuition is $3,534. She wants to know how much she needs to budget each month for tuition. So more often than not, you will not be able to pay off a large sum of money immediately. And so you have to think throughout the year how much you have to save per month, per week, per pay period, paycheck, whatever, in order to pay that annual fee, tuition, membership, whatever it is that annual expense is going to be. So in this case, Samantha needs to figure out how much she needs to budget each month, meaning how much she needs to save each month to pay off that annual tuition fee. So we take this value, the annual tuition for class, $3,534, and divide it by how many months there are in a year. So we take $3,534 and then divide that by 12. Plug that into the calculator. 3534 divided by 12. And we get $294.50, meaning every month she needs to save close to $300, $294.50 per month in order to afford her annual tuition fee of $3,534 that she has to pay for once per year. So as time goes on, she has to save that much money to pay it off. Okay, so for you, try number 1. For his yearly vacation, Colton plans to spend $750. How much should Colton budget monthly for his vacation? If you're following along in ClassKit, go ahead and answer these boxes right here, and then check your work by moving this black box below to see what it is you need to do to solve the problem. So pause this video, try this problem on your own, see if you can figure it out. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show you all how to do this. So for his yearly vacation, he spends $750. So his annual expense is $750. How much should Colton budget monthly? So we need to take this annual expense divided by 12 to figure out how much he needs to save per month in order to afford that annual expense once the time comes. So 750 divided by 12. And we have $62.50. So $62.50 needs to be budgeted per month in order to afford his vacation for the year. And that's it for you, try number 1. Sometimes you may want to know what percent of your income must be budgeted for a given expense. So this is just basically seeing your budget through a different view, a different lens, to kind of get the idea of how much of your budget is going towards specific things. Sometimes you want to know what percentage of that expense is coming out of all your other expenses, so that you can delegate or you can add or subtract expenses in order to be able to either afford or if you don't think it's important, move those expenses to some other things for your budget. So sometimes, I already said that. So to do so, divide your expense amount by your net income. So to get the percent of income budgeted for a given expense, we're going to take that expense divided by the net income. And what is net income? Net income is what you make for your pay after taxes have been taken out. So let's look at an example of this problem. I'm going to cover things up and reveal them as we go. So Caleb's semi-monthly net income is $1,894. His fixed expenses each month are $1,060. What percent of his monthly income is budgeted for fixed expenses? Step 1, calculate the monthly income. So let's look at what we have right here. Caleb's semi-monthly net income is $1,894. So how do we get monthly income from a semi-monthly figure? So we know semi-monthly means twice per month. Again, semi-monthly means twice per month. So I'm going to take this figure, multiply it by 2, and this is how much I have per month. So this is per month. So now, what percent of his monthly income is budgeted for fixed expenses? We take the expense, which is $1,060, and divide it by the net monthly income for this particular example. So we're going to divide 1060 by 3788. First, let me make sure that this is the correct number. Yep, it is 3788. Then I'm going to take 1060 divided by 3788. Okay, so this is my decimal form of the percentage. In order to change any decimal to its percent form, we also have to multiply by 100 or move the decimal place to the right twice. Round up or down, depending on what the problem asks for. We'll say this is about 28% when we round it. So if we round the 7 up or down based on the decimal point after that, that'll round up to about 28%. So about 28% of his monthly net income is budgeted for fixed expenses. Okay, so a decent chunk, almost 1/3 of his paycheck, his monthly paycheck, gets applied to fixed expenses. So again, all this is doing is giving you a different visual of what's happening with your money. Okay, that's it for example 2. You try number 2. John budgets $1,060 each month for fixed expenses. He nets $1,540 semi-monthly. And then what percent of his net monthly income does he budget for fixed expenses? So step 1, calculate the monthly income. It's structured similar to example 2. Then step 2, divide the monthly expense by the monthly income and then get your answer. Move this box right here to the left to see if you got everything correctly, if you did the right work to get the right answer. Go ahead and pause this video. Try this problem on your own, especially if you're on ClassKick. Fill this out and see if you can get the correct answer. Practice is always best with math in general if you ever want to understand and fully grasp these concepts. You can't just listen to me. You have to also participate and practice the material too. So anyways, pause this video, try this problem on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. John budgets $1,060 each month for fixed expenses. He nets $1,540 semi-monthly. First step, before we figure out the percent of his net monthly income, we need to calculate the monthly income. We know semi-monthly means twice per month. So we're going to take $1,540 and then multiply by 2. That should be 3,080. Yep, 3,080. So this is his net monthly income. Now, to figure out what percent of his net monthly income is used for his expenses, we divide the monthly expenses, which is 1,060, by what we have for net monthly income, which is 3080. So 1060 divided by 3080. Multiply this by 100 and change it into its percent form. We get about 34%. Let me make sure I rounded that correctly. 34.5% if you wanted to, otherwise 34%. Yeah, round your answer to do 2 decimal places, so this would be 0.34 for the decimal answer. Multiplying it by 100 will give us 34%. And that's it. That's it for you try number 2. Okay, I have another video for y'all to watch called Building a Budget. So, I have the link right there in ClassKit if you want to just watch on your own time. Otherwise, I'm going to play through this video and then we will answer the box below. So, let's go ahead and watch this video.
Aw, man, I do not have the budget for new shoes right now.
Over budget, eh?
Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe I can help. I'm a card-carrying budget builder.
I keep trying to make a budget that works for me, but it all keeps falling apart.
Sounds like you need a new approach. Don't hesitate to start from scratch and try again. Begin by getting your basic proportions right.
Go on.
A solid, well-proportioned budget will give you increased security, flexibility, and efficiency when it comes to money. You won't end up constantly broke before payday or saddled with out-of-control debts. What do you know about 50-30-20?
Is that a new boy band or something?
I like you. Allow me to demonstrate. Bring them in. Take your total net income and create a budget to spend 50% on needs,
I'm essential.
30% on wants,
You know I'm the coolest one.
and put 20% into savings.
I've got your back.
You get it? Start with your needs. Factor in all the essentials like housing, insurance, clothing, transportation, cell phone, groceries, and utilities.
But what if my needs cost more than 50%?
If that's the case, you have 3 choices: finding cheaper options, looking for ways to earn more money, or sacrificing a bit from another category.
Hey, lousy needs.
Your wants are the most flexible category, but they can also be the hardest to wrangle. Wants include dining out, concerts, movies, fashion, electronics, travel, subscription services, and all other non-essential purchases.
Okay, I'll rein in my wants if my needs are too expensive. Cool.
You could also sacrifice wants to put more into savings. Hey, back off, pal.
Yeah.
Savings are extremely important, and not just for big, long-term goals like buying a house or retiring. You can also save for short-term future expenses, like an annual payment or a needed computer upgrade. You should put some money aside for an emergency fund as well. Saving up ahead of time will help you keep your budget more manageable, so you don't have to resort to high-interest debt to cover unforeseen expenses.
Can I save less than 20%?
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, but remember that your savings help with future needs, which aren't optional.
That's right. Ignoring me could come back to haunt you.
All right, I like this whole 50-30-20 thing, but my real problem is sticking to the game plan. How do I keep my budget from falling apart again?
That depends on you. Do you want total and complete control? Then go old school and make an itemized spreadsheet.
And if I want super easy?
Then let technology do it for you. There are some great online tools and apps out there that make budgeting a snap, no matter which method you choose. Make sure you track your spending for 2 months to get a full picture of your spending habits. Then you can make adjustments to trim down your needs, maximize your wants, and stay on top of savings.
Nice. I can make it all work together instead of feeling like each expense is fighting for dominance.
Yep. When your budget is well built, everything will fit nicely.
Awesome. I'll use the 50-30-20 rule as a framework and build myself a better budget this time.
Now you're talking. Go get 'em.
Whoops. Hehehe.
So again, after watching that video, go ahead and share one thing you learned from the video in the box below. Again, there's no right or wrong answer in terms of this section of the notes. It's more so about being able to take what you just learned, rearrange your thoughts, and then put them down so that you can see what it is that you learned, if you learned anything at all. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Balancing a budget means making sure you have at least enough income to meet all of your expenses. We have three different things to kind of keep in mind when balancing a budget. When your net income equals the total amount of expenses, that equals a balanced budget. When your net income is greater than your total expenses, you will have a surplus amount of money, meaning that you'll have some extra money that you can choose however you want to use for your wants, your savings, or maybe you could pick up another need, quote unquote, to add to your expenses. Excuse me. If your net income is less than your total expenses, you will have a deficit, meaning you will have to make up that money somehow, or you may have to sacrifice something in order to meet your total expenses. So these three things you keep in mind whenever you're figuring out your budget for the month, for the year, for the week, whatever. To determine whether a budget is balanced, shows a deficit, or has a surplus, we're going to subtract the total monthly expenses from the net income for the month. Let's look at some examples on how we do that. Example number 3. Tracy budgeted for $770 for fixed expenses and $530 for living expenses per month. She has no annual expenses. So her annual net income is $16,752. Is her monthly budget balanced? If not, does it show a surplus or a deficit, and what is the amount? So I'm going to cover these up and then reveal them as we go. Step 1, what is our monthly income? Well, we have an annual net income, which is $6,752. But if you notice what the expenses are, they're all expenses for the month, not annual expenses. So there's two ways to go about this. Either let's figure out what we spend on the entire year for the expense, or we divide the annual expense into its monthly, or the annual net income to its monthly net income, and then figure out whether we have surplus, deficit, or if it's balanced. So anyways, we're going to go just one way here. I'm assuming it's because for living expenses, those aren't fixed, and so we're only going to be looking at it for this particular month. $530 could be different the next month. It could be $570, depending on whether that person gets specific groceries or not. So this is probably why we're going to do, we're going to go from annual net income to monthly net income instead of just figuring out what we spend for the year. Anyways, step 1, calculate the monthly income. We're going to take $16,752. 16,752. Divide this by 12. And we get $1,396. $1,396. So this is how much we make per month based on her annual net income. Step 2. Add up all the monthly expenses. We got $770 plus $530. Add those two together, and we get $1,300 or $1,300. Now, to figure out whether we have a surplus or a deficit, we need to subtract the monthly income with the monthly expenses. So $1,396 minus $1,300 gives us a total of $96. So that $96, pay attention to the sign. If it's positive, meaning you don't see any pluses or minus, well, you don't see anything. You don't see any minuses there. Then we have a surplus. If it was a balance of 0, then we have a balanced budget. But if that 96 was instead negative, so for example, if these numbers were switched around, and we ended up with a negative number, that means we have a deficit. We need to find out how to make up that money that we will eventually owe for our expense, either by fixing your budget or taking up another job and making more money to compensate for that lack of money for the budget. So again, we have a surplus in this case of $96. That's it for example number 3. Okay, you try number 3. John budgets $13.50 each month for fixed expenses, $970, $75 for living expenses, and $665 for annual expenses. His biweekly net income is $1,380. Which statement best describes his monthly budget? Step 1, calculate his monthly income. Step 2, add the monthly expenses. And be careful because this does say for annual expenses, but John budgets each month, so that includes the $665 for annual expenses. Each month he has to take that, he has to budget $665 for that annual expense down the line. That's what that means. Anyways, step 2. Step 3, subtract monthly income with monthly expenses, and then figure out if John has a surplus, deficit, or if this is a balanced budget. If you're on ClassKick, if you're working through this problem on ClassKick, go ahead and pause the video. Try this problem on your own. Move this box once you're done to check your work to see if everything comes out okay. I also have some other things to kind of help y'all determine how to solve this problem. So go through that and see if you can figure it out on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. John budgets $1,350 each month for fixed expenses, $975 for living expenses, and $665 for annual expenses. His bi-weekly net income is $1,380. Which statement best describes his monthly budget? So step 1, we want to calculate the monthly income. So this is going to be a multi-step problem. First, we need to figure out how much he makes for the entire year. So his net biweekly income is $1,380. First, we're going to multiply by the number of pay periods for biweekly, which is 26, so that we can figure out what he makes for the entire year. Oh, whoops. What happened to that? There we go. So 1380 times 26 is what he $35,880 is what he makes for the entire year. However, we want to do this for monthly so we can figure out his monthly budget. So we're going to divide by 12. Whatever number we get from that parentheses right here, divide by 12. And we get 2,990. Okay, now we're going to add up all the monthly expenses. For monthly expenses, we have $1,350 plus $975, and then plus $665. And we have $2,990. Step 3, subtract the monthly income. And you can kind of guess, seeing from how these numbers are the same, how this is going to turn out. $2,990 minus $2,990 will equal 0. So we have a balanced budget. We have a balanced budget. And again, if that number was anything but 0, it would have been a surplus. If it had a negative sign in front of it, it would have been a deficit. But because it equals 0, this is a balanced budget. We got exactly what we needed for the month. And that's it for You Try number 3. Making predictions. Equations can be used to make predictions by evaluating the equation. So let's look at an example on how to do that. Example number 4. The equation y equals 1.55x plus 110 for 19 approximates the total cost in dollars of raising a child in the United States from birth to 17 years, given the household's annual income X. So approximately how much would it cost to raise a child with an annual income of $67,000? So Y represents the total cost in dollars to raise a child in the United States, given the household's annual income X. So X represents the income. Approximately how much would it cost to raise a child? So how much would it cost is the Y value. We don't know what the Y value is, but we are given the annual income of $67,000, and X represents the household's income. So X is over here. So we're going to use that equation, replace X with $67,000, evaluated by plugging it into the calculator. 1.55 parentheses 67,000 plus $110,419, and $214,269 is our total. Meaning that if you have an annual income of $67,000, it's going to cost you $214,269 to raise this child. And that's it for example 4. Earlier, I was trying to interpret what this equation meant, and I think I figured it out. 1.55 is the increase for the amount of money you make. And if you make no money, then all you would have to worry about is $110,000 to raise a child. Well, because you make no money, more than likely, you don't have a lot of expenses. You don't really need to worry about living expenses, household expenses, other expenses other than raising your child. And so you only have to worry about the $110,000. But as your income increases, so does your expenses, and probably the amount of expenses you have to deal with. And so it gets raised by 1.55 in this equation as you increase your annual income. So I think I figured that out. And hopefully that makes sense to y'all too. But if not, let me know, and I can try and help interpret that for y'all. But anyways, that's it for example 4. You try number 4. Same equation. The equation y equals 1.55x plus 110,419 approximates the total cost in dollars of raising a child in the United States from birth to 17 years, given the household's annual income X. Approximately how much would it cost to raise a child with an annual income of $54,000? So plug the X value into the equation and solve. Go through this problem, see if you can figure it out on your own through ClassKick or on your own separate sheet of paper in your own calculator. Move this box to see if you've gotten the right answer. Try this out on your own. Pause the video. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So the X value is 54,000. How do I know it's 54,000? Because X represents household's annual income. We are given an annual income of 54,000. So therefore I know the X value is that. We know that the Y value, the equation, approximates the total cost. We want to figure out what the cost is, so that's what we don't know. Y is a mystery to us. How do we find Y? Well, we're given an X. Plug the X into this problem right here, 54,000. plug it into the equation, and solve. So 1.55 parentheses 54,000 close parentheses plus 110 and 419, and we get 194,119. So if you have an annual income of $54,000, then it's going to take approximately $194,119 to raise your child from birth to 17 years. And that's it for problem number 4, and that's it for 3.02 notes in general. If y'all have any questions, let me know. Y'all have my number, y'all have my email from the classroom, from the course in the banner and in the content as well. So if you need anything, just shoot me a message, let me know. Otherwise, I will see y'all in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.